the most important part is there should be structure on how you onboard them into your technical stack. You need to make sure that you are there in every step of the way and you actually leave time or a body, dependent on how big your company is, to actually go through with them in the onboarding process.
So, welcome back to Kaka Computer, where tech meets wit and wisdom. So, for this episode, we're going to talk about building and scaling IT teams.
So our first question would be, what are the first steps to take when building an IT team from the ground up? Maybe Franz can start.
Okay. So, not so sure kung paano magbigay ng context, but yeah. So, yeah, a bit of context. So, I'm a CTO of a firm. So, a firm business-like environment. So, this is a very meaty question for me. So, we do this all the time, essentially. So, in terms of just so very quick steps, there's two ways to do this. You need someone who will build and you need someone who will sell, essentially. So, dependent on the business that approached you on what you're going to build, essentially, that's where you will be identifying what you need. So it's really hard to compress this, but for example, you need someone to be able to create the front end or what the users will see. Number one. First, you need someone to be able to support that front end, to save the data, to actually process user requests, and that's the back end. So I won't go to that meat because it's gonna take us a long time, more than 15 minutes, essentially. So that's the build part. And for the sell part, you need someone to be able to market, someone to be able to make it eye-catchy, someone to be able to build the brand, essentially. And yeah, that's what I've observed at the very least in my experience.
Yeah, I think in my case, almost very similar to you. I also work in a software development firm wherein we build a lot of projects from scratch. Siguro first thing I would do is I'll try to understand what are we going to build. Is it a website, a mobile app? Ano yung functionalities na tong website na to or app na to? Then, by then, I would be able to determine ano yung mga roles na kailangan ko. Do I need a front-end developer, back-end developer? Do I need an AI/ML engineer? Or do I need a blockchain developer? So, based from the requirements, you should be able to identify what are the roles you need to build a cross-functional team na capable of delivering what you're aiming to build. And yeah, from there, I think that's normally the first step that we would do. Yeah. How about you, Clay?
I think building on what you have mentioned, no, it will also scale at some point. So the roles that you will be needing in your team also grows. Of course, with need. For example, before kailangan mo lang front end, back end. Now, lumaki na yung requirements. Need mo na ng additional manpower for testing. And then you need like, let's say, a product manager. Hindi mo na kayang mag-sell and, think of beautiful features na pwede mong i-add sa product roadmap. You need a product manager for that. So yeah, it also grows in time. And at the end of the day, it really matters on what you're trying to build. Now, in a firm naman na perspective, at least you need to have the generic skill set, let's say front end, back end. Kasi kahit anong type of project ang ibabato mo dyan, they can really build it. Kasi back end naman, it's always about, building APIs, managing back end servers and all that. And front end, more of the user interfaces, user experiences and all that. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. How about in terms of team size and team structure? Ano yung tingin yung ideal for a project?
So there's this saying in the management book that the ideal team size is the team size that can handle one pizza. So that can share one pizza, actually.
Okay.
So that can depend on what you need. But just so you guys know, in our firm, it has just started with just 3 of us. Me, the technical side, the software engineer, and then a designer and a marketer. That's all we needed to push out at least 3 products, essentially. Then the needs became more essentially that I can't unfortunately can't clone yourself. So
Yep.
that's when you actually get outside help, right? And now we've grew to two core team developer, just two actually, just very small. Then whenever there's a need arises, we just hire contractors. That's just a project based kind of engagement basically. So you don't need that big of a team size just yet at the beginning. But I'm sure you guys have better ideas of scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sa case naman namin, normally malalaki talaga yung mga projects na hawak namin eh. And common na very aggressive yung timeline requirements nung client. So if it's good to start a really small team kasi it's easier to manage. Pero yun, kapag mas aggressive yung timeline, sometimes we also have to plan out, can we do multiple teams for this project? Like, just one project but meron mga sub-team na isang front-end, isang back-end, isang QE, then another sub-team na merong the same setup role. So normally, try namin na pero hindi, minsan hindi rin effective na dahil ito yung timeline, pupunuin mo na lang ng sobrang daming sub-teams. So, sometimes we also negotiate. Baka hindi naman kailangan to lahat ma-deliver in this amount of time. Normally, inahanap lang naman ng client is at the start isang MVP, then to get some feedback sa mga users, if may gagamit ba talaga nitong application na to. So, sometimes we negotiate para makip namin na small yung team, and even try to prolong din yung timeline para it's easier to manage and makasabay din lahat kasi pag mas malaki yung team, kailangan mas malaki rin yung gumagawa ng mga requirements, di ba? Mas marami yung nagde-design. So, it's more, complicated to manage than a small team. How about you, Cleo?
Yeah, I think it's the same also sa sinabi nyo, no? Like, it depends on what you're building and the timeline as well. It's important to note that you should have core developers, internal core team. Kahit mag-staff augmentation kayo, you hire contractors for a brief amount of time just to satisfy the need for manpower. Kasi hindi naman, for example, like a firm, di ba? Hindi naman all the time steady yung flow in ng mga projects. So, may shelf life yung ibang skill set na needed mo. So, it should be like, something like pay as you go. If as a subscription pa na, you utilize them when you needed them. But if you feel na you needed this type of skill set on a long-term basis, on a sustainable basis, then that's the time that you really onboard them as one of your core team.
Okay, yeah, nice. How about in terms of attracting talents naman? Siyempre, you have to build a team, di ba? So, yeah, how do you attract itong mga talents na to be part of your team?
Okay, so this is kind of hard, right? Because not all firm work are exciting work. Let's be honest. Okay. Sometimes it's just doing a real estate website, for example. Or sometimes it's just enabling automation over an existing workflow. So what I do usually is my attack at least for me personally, is the community. Okay. So I do speaking engagements, just like this one. I actually go to meetups and network with people, and most of my talents actually came from that network. But if we can't find any, it's about selling the job. Okay, so we start with the problem state. We actually give the product vision very early in the actual job description, and then the stack that we deal. So and hope for the best, unfortunately. But most of my best hires actually came from a network. Essentially.
Yeah. I think in my case, mainly I'll help out refining yung I contribute to the recruitment process wherein I give our recruitment team the job description of what we're looking for. Nagsaset ako ng mga yung must have and nice to have. Then after that they'll post it. Normally we'll get a lot of applicants kasi yun nga, malaki na rin yung network ng kunyari JobStreet, LinkedIn, and even through our website, yun, meron din mga nag-a-apply. So I think it's important din na if meron ka ng parang employer a good branding to attracts client. Then to make sure na they are high quality talent, normally we conduct series of interviews. So meron kaming HR interview, technical interview, and sometimes ako mismo yung nagkakandak ng technical interview, especially sa mga senior and manager role. And I just make sure na they pass the checklist. Walang nakakalusot kahit na kamag-anak ko pa yung nag-apply or friends ko pa yung nag-apply. And in our case, that's how we kind of build this culture wherein you want just high quality developer so that people would know that if they work with this company, they will work with amazing people. So hopefully that would attract them to work with us.
Yeah. So in my case naman, I can give for a more of like company perspective. No, apart from the perks, na the bare minimum na mga things like, what you can, what one thing that really stands out is the culture of the company. Of course, people really want to stay in a company where they feel they're heard and an organization that values their ideas. And also another thing is, tech talent war is really hard to fight. Like everyone is always trying to buy out the best talent out there. But sometimes it's also good na to see potential. Like you don't always get the high performing ones because sometimes they also require, like big compensation. So always look at for yung mga diamonds in rough ba yun na pwede mo pa silang i-polish, and it turns out that there's so much potential in them that they could be like high quality talent at some point. So that's another perspective that you may want to look at.
All right, so I just would like to thank our sponsor for this episode. So this episode of Kakang Computer is proudly sponsored by Luminar Solar Solutions. Did you know that switching to solar energy can help you save money and the planet at the same time? That's where Luminar Solar Solutions comes in. As an emerging provider in the Philippines, Luminar makes solar power easy, affordable for both homes and businesses. And if you're ready to start saving and live more sustainably, find them on Facebook at Luminar Solar Solutions and send them a message. Yeah, in terms of course, maghahanap kayo ng ng talent. Then you hire them already. Yeah, how do you onboard this talents sa side nyo? You wanna start, Brand?
Okay, so onboarding. It's aside from the obvious checklist, right? So if you already have built a company, I have my own checklist. Like if you don't have a checklist, make a checklist. Okay, so that you don't forget anything. But for me, an effective onboarding requires two things. Number one is to describe the business. What's your goal? What's your role? What are we doing? What products are we pushing? Etc. The second part is the technical onboarding, which we know all in love when it comes to technical teams, right? And this, for me, the most important part is there should be structure on how you onboard them into your technical stack. You need to make sure that you are there in every step of the way and you actually leave time or a body, dependent on how big your company is, to actually go through with them into the onboarding process. It's bad for me. Do not just put them there and then read documentation. For me, that's not productive. You need to be able to dedicate time into actually easing them in the process. And if you can afford it, put a buddy to actually help them with everything. It's like common practice essentially. But for me, since we have a small team, I'm the buddy essentially. So that's what I do. So I ease them in and everything. And that's basically it.
Yeah. It's very similar to you. Of course, we also have checklists. Yeah. And some items on our checklist about the product, what we're building, ano yung goal ng product, ano yung mga features niya, ano yung functionality. Then we also have what we call the ways of working, onboarding. Like, do we use Scrum, Kanban? How do we estimate? Paano yung development workflow from design, development, testing to deployment. And I think yung pinakagusto ko talaga yung kagaya na sinabi, meron kaming technical onboarding, but meron kaming 3 layers. The technical onboarding one is we call it like the high level onboarding, wherein we onboard the person to the entire system, the different platforms that we have. The second onboarding is about the specific, dun sa specific platform kung saan siya ma-assign. So it could be the mobile app or the front end. Then the last one is a specific feature na kung saan yung possibly na ma-assign siya. Just to get him, I think yung pinaka last part is we'll give him like a bug fix task na related sa feature na in-onboard namin siya. Then kailangan niya makapag-contribute in 2 weeks. Oo. So yun yung may metric kami na dapat from the moment na na-onboard ka namin, dapat within 2 weeks, meron ka ma-contribute na something na at least deployed sa staging environment or nice na kapag nasa production na siya. How about sa inyo, Cleo?
Yeah, I think there's no better way to onboard someone than for that someone to be a user of the product. Kasi that's how you integrate yourself with the product and services that you're building. And of course, things will follow, like yung technical onboarding, like you make sure that you have good documentation as well as, like what is the process, the life cycle or software development, like processes that you do. And another thing is also very important is you teach them who to reach out to. This is one of the things that they really forget, especially if you're going to join an organization na may structure na and there's just so many people. You don't know who to reach out to. Let's say testing, who should I reach out to for testing? In terms of like getting access, who should I reach out to? In terms of, let's say cloning, if I encountered some errors in setting up my local environment, things like that. So always have this clear list of who they can reach out to, especially when they feel so lost since they're just new.